In today's webinar, how can I integrate the UN Sustainable Development Goals into my teachings? We are using a hands-on approach to explore these three questions. What are the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals? How can I translate these goals into meaningful activities for my learners? How do I motivate learners to understand and implement the values of these goals in their lives? We will look at practical examples across grades and subjects from primary to tertiary to enable learners to contribute to their community. We have two presenters from the British Council today, Meena and Priya, and we have Manisha, our sign language interpreter from Access for All. Meena has been a teacher and a teacher educator for 30 years in India and overseas. She has worked as a trainer with IIM Ahmedabad and the US State Department. She works extensively with NGOs educating underprivileged communities. Meena also writes textbook materials for the CBSE, and as a training consultant for the British Council, Meena works on Pan-India projects. She is passionate about teacher development. Priya is a senior academic manager for English programs with the British Council in India. She started her English language teaching career volunteering for the British Council Times of India Partnership in 2011 and later joined the Aga Khan Foundation to work on their ELT project. Priya has worked as a freelance consultant with the British Council on a multitude of large-scale teacher development projects across the country, and she joined the team full-time as an academic manager in 2019. Priya is committed to teacher professional development and learning new languages. Over to you, Priya and Meena.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. Meena, could you please start sharing the screen?
Yes. Here we go.
Thank you, Meena. Good evening, everyone. Like Michelle mentioned, we will be looking at the topic, how do you integrate the UN Sustainable Development Goals into your teaching? I'll quickly take you over the learning outcomes for the day. By the end of this session, you will have understood the framework and the implications of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. You will have explored the relevance of these policies as values which you can communicate to your learners. And you would have analyzed examples to integrate these goals into your curricula so that the learners can practice them inside and outside their classrooms. I'd just like to mention here that while we've covered a wide range of subjects in this presentation, we'll be focusing a little bit more on English language learning in the examples that we share and going forward in our webinars as well. So let's look at what is the United Nations very quickly. The UN was established after the Second World War with about 51 member states. It currently stands at 193 to help stabilize international relations and to give peace a more secure foundation. What are the aims of the United Nations? Of course, to maintain international peace and security, to promote human rights, foster social and economic development, provide humanitarian aid during conflict, famine, and disaster, and finally, last but not the least, protecting the environment. On the slide, you can see the definition of what sustainable development means. In a nutshell, it means that we're ensuring the health and safety of future generations without overexploiting current resources. What are the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals? There are 17 global goals for sustainable development, which could mean an end to extreme poverty, inequalities, and climate change by 2030. These 17 goals are further broken down into worldwide targets and indicators. So the framework of the 17 SDGs is up on your screen now. There are 169 targets. which are very local, specific, and time-bound. There are 247 indicators which collect data and measure these targets that I just spoke about. And how all of this pans out in India is that it's coordinated by Niti Aayog and the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation through SDG India Index. Over to you, Meena.
Okay, thank you, Priya. Now you've had an overview of what the UN is and what the SDGs are. We will be alternatively calling them SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. They are also known as global goals. So here is this iconic poster, which many of you might have already seen, and it has all the 17 goals on it. You can treat the goals together in the poster as one, or you could individually pick up these icons and use them in your classrooms. A word of caution, if you're reproducing this poster, please do it as it is. You cannot change any colors or fonts. And you also cannot use the UN logo without permission. So here are the 17 goals, and I'm going to read them out to you just for clarity in order. It starts with no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace, justice, and strong institutions. And the 17th goal is the partnerships for all the previous 16 goals. So here we have the three pillars, so to say, of the SDGs. The first is the economic pillar. Then we have the environmental pillar. Then we have a social pillar. It's basically just three broad categories, but all the goals are interlinked and interdisciplinary. You cannot treat any one of them in isolation in the classroom as well when you're implementing them. Okay, so now in the next section, let's look at how we are going to bring these SDGs into our classrooms. How are we going to implement? Before that, you might be wondering, this is all about government and policy, and these are sustainable development goals of the UN. What relevance does it have for me as a teacher? How does it impact my student? How is it going to interest my student in the classroom? But it is very, very significant, and it has a lot of benefit for the learners. So let's look at some of the impacts. The first is a raised awareness of global issues. For example, now we have climate change, very frightening effects of climate change. We have flooding all over North India. We have soaring temperatures in Europe. We have an ongoing war in Ukraine. Now, if you're going to be raising these issues in the classroom, then there is raised awareness. Priya?
That we can also look at this as critical thinking and problem solving, raising awareness about this and developing these 21st century skills in our learners, thinking of solutions and innovations to the problems that Meena just mentioned in their own schools for our learners and within our neighborhoods for us.
Yes. Social responsibility towards communities. So when we talk about the SDGs, all 17 or only some of them, then the learners start realizing that they do owe something back to their society, back to the communities. So it fosters a sense of social responsibility, which is very, very important for them to have.
Absolutely, Meena. And I think empathy and intercultural tolerance too, bringing kindness into their lives, into the lives of our students, making them rise above all the hatred and narrow-minded attitudes, and making them aware of the multiple races and ethnicities around them, and also respecting each other's cultures.
Yes. And if they have all these kind of awareness, all these previous qualities, then responsible choices and principled behavior automatically follows. This cannot be taught. It has to come and grow from within their classrooms and within their homes. So as we go along, we'll be looking at how you can foster these qualities in the classroom. So let's jump into some activities now. Here is a clip from a standard 3, a class 3 environmental studies text. and the title of the lesson is Foods We Eat. You can see some children having a conversation. I'm reading out some of their speech, some of their observations. So one boy says, last night I ate a chapati made of bajra with jaggery. Another boy says, my mother brought noodles for us from the house where she works. We enjoyed eating it. Another child says, yesterday, no food was cooked in my house. Now, considering all these conversations, what goal could we introduce here and why? So just think about which goal you could introduce. And in the chat box, could you just put in your answers, just as points? What goal could we introduce here? Yes, in the chat box, please. Okay, no
Excellent.
hunger.
Meena, we're getting in responses. No hunger. People are saying goal number 2.
Okay, zero hunger. Very good.
Zero hunger.
Yeah, excellent. Everybody is right on point here. We could have
unequal
zero
distribution. Somebody
yeah,
also.
Okay, very good.
Somebody
Excellent.
also mentioned unequal distribution here.
Excellent.
Quality education is what is also coming through.
Yeah, and I can see no poverty as well, right?
Yes.
Yes, fantastic. So what we could have is zero hunger, no poverty, reduced inequalities, and also responsible consumption. Because think about food being wasted, luxurious institutions having a lot of wasted food. So that also is possible. Any other ideas here, Priya?
Like you rightly pointed out, we could also talk about, alongside avoiding wasting food, we could also talk about avoiding wasting of water.
Yes.
What do you think, Meena?
Yes, yes. Wasting water goes hand in hand with that. Now let's look at the activities which we can have in the lesson. Already the text contains some very good questions, higher order thinking skills questions. So you must have noticed that there is one child in whose house no food was cooked. What could be the reason? And then has it ever happened to you that you've been very hungry and had nothing to eat? How do you know you're hungry? How do you feel when you're hungry? So these are all very, very deep and essential questions. But we could also bring in some other activities. Like, for example, we could have them draw a picture of their plate with their food items on it, or food being thrown away in a garbage bin. We could also have a small discussion at their level about, wasting food and wasting water. So these are the kind of activities which we could have here, apart from the questions in the book. So these are the two goals which we can deal with here. Now let's look at another lesson plan for primary students. Now, this is related to goal 16, which is peace, justice, and strong institutions. It's taken from a website called Teaching English. It's about peacemakers and peace breakers. Basically, the aim is to promote peace, respect, and tolerance. And they also create a peace poster. You can access this lesson plan through the link, which gives you a complete breakup and also the worksheets and how to execute it in the classroom. But you notice here that there is one step which says list all the words for peace in different languages. So this is in line with the multilingual approach of the British Council, and later on Priya will be talking about it. Now we are moving on to a social science lesson of class 7. Now this lesson has very good graphics. It's got an Anganwadi as an image. Why an Anganwadi? Because it's empowering women to go out and work, and their children are kept safely. It's already got goal 5, gender equality, inserted there. There's some statistics about paid and unpaid work for men and women. But apart from gender equality, what other goals could we put in here? Priya, what do you think? What other SDGs could we put in here?
Yeah, I'm really tempted to look at the chat box. I can start off with one of the goals, and maybe the audience can help me identify some more goals that could be linked here. I think we could absolutely it's very correct. Somebody just said quality education in the chat box. So you
Very
stole
good.
my answer there.
Yeah.
You could talk about SDG number 10, probably reduced inequalities, Meena.
Yes, yes,
And
because
I
because
could,
of the imbalance in the salary. And I
that's
think we
right,
can
that's
also,
right.
yes, yeah, we can also talk about
Yeah,
decent
talk
work
about
and
SDG number 8,
yes, correct.
decent work
Decent
and
work,
economic growth.
absolutely. Yeah, very true. So this is a very good lesson, and it's also got all these implicit factors within it. Now, let's move on to an English lesson from class 7. Now, here I must comment that having lessons from social science, from environmental studies, and the rest of them, these are all relatively easy to link to the SDGs. What if you're an English teacher with an English lesson? How do you do it? It's still possible. There are opportunities. So this is a lesson about a shoemaker, an excellent shoemaker who makes quality shoes, but then he loses all his business. And then finally he dies of starvation. So during the lesson, he tells the narrator, they get it all. He's talking about the big firms. He says they get it all. They get it by advertisement, not by work. They take it away from us. It comes to this. Presently, I have no work. Every year it gets less. So prophetically, when he says this, he does actually lose all his work and then goes out of business. So in a lesson like this, there are questions here in the text itself saying, speak to 5 adults and talk about how they do their shopping. Is it in plastic packets? Where do they buy their footwear? Do they buy it locally? Or do they buy brands? Do they buy ready-made clothes? Or do they get it stitched by a tailor? What activities can we have here? What kind of activities could we put in here? What do you think, Priya? Any ideas?
I think there's a lot of scope here, right? As English teachers, I think we can certainly bring in the multilingual activities. Like one of these activities actually talks about it. Speak to 5 adults in your neighborhood and ask them in any language they are comfortable with. So I think as teachers, English teachers, the least we could do is when our students are distressed or when they're sharing something which requires them to nuance it and articulate it. These issues are really complex and very local. So we should promote
Yes.
the use of their own language and thereby promote multilingualism in the classroom to articulate nuances like this. And the NEP, National Education Policy 2020, actually promotes this, and we've linked it in the resources, Meena, right?
Yes, yes, I have. Yeah. Very good. You could also think of a debate here, a simple debate about large chains versus small enterprises. That could also cover all these aspects here. So we have reduced inequalities, we have decent work and economic growth, and I think no poverty as well, because the man actually dies of poverty. Thank you. There are some responses having. Decent economic growth is one of the answers I'm seeing. Thank you very much, all of you. Now, let's move on to, we're going up the ladder slowly from primary to 7th. Now we are coming to 11, class 11. There are 3 images here. The first one is a girl child looking after her sibling. The next one is a commercial center, a mall. The third one is women at work in a cotton field. Now, there are a lot of goals which can be linked here because basically that chapter has only 2 content questions at the end. But here we have a lot of possibilities for the UN SDGs. We can have no poverty, quality education. We can have gender equality and decent work. And we can have sustainable cities and reduced inequalities. So a lot of exploitation of the SDGs here. But what kind of activities could we bring in here? Yes, Priya, what kind of activities could we bring in here? I thought of having a podcast, do you think?
Yes, yes, Meena, why not? We could get our students to design a podcast and record their audio, maybe even create a short film, give them the dialogues and the language that they need, and they could come up with a short film on the topic.
Yes, and they could have an advocacy campaign and design a logo for it with the teachers helping
Absolutely.
them. Yes, thank you. The next one is again a standalone lesson plan, which is again a ready-made lesson plan, and you can look at the link for this. It's about poverty, to raise awareness of poverty, and about material and non-material needs. The interesting thing here is the discussion, which also promotes our language speaking skills. So what does it mean to be rich, to be poor? What are the universal basic human needs for well-being, material or non-material? So this lesson plan actually is from a British Council website, Teaching English, adapted from a British Council publication. And it's got a very interesting plan with a lot of worksheets for you to go through. And the foundation is on no poverty. Now we are going to a sample activity for tertiary learners. This is an interesting activity which covers a lot of skills and it will interest learners from all subjects. So here there is a discussion. First of all, we start with a discussion on concerns about climate change. Then we go on to a video, very technical video about greenhouse effect and carbon cycle, which will interest the tech learners. Then there is a text about the Conference of Parties. The Conference of Parties is a very, very topical theme because it happens every year. And the last one was held in Egypt in 2022. And they announce a whole lot of climate resolutions within these Conference of Parties. Then there is a TED talk on reducing dependence on fossil fuels, which is a listening activity. And then finally, they get together and they discuss how they can activate local action. Now, activating local action is something we are going to be discussing as we go along further. The lesson plan, the link is given to you here. And the SDGs here are obviously affordable and clean energy and climate action. Now, this has a lot of skills, like I said. Basically, the 21st century skills, critical thinking, problem solving. They can think of solutions on how to reduce fossil fuels. They can also collaborate and be creative on how to find these things, innovate how to reduce dependence, innovate on how to have clean and renewable energy. A lot of thought-provoking activities here which can be included and which you can adapt. So I'm sure this will interest all of your learners. Priya will talk about climate change now in language education.
Very true. Yes, Meena. So I think there is also a lot of scope here to bring in some language activities and discuss about climate action in language education. Like Meena mentioned, this is at the heart of everything that the British Council does. So we even have an open online course for any of you who is interested in this topic. We've shared resources to this in the resources section. We've shared links to this in the resources section at the end.
Yes. Yeah, at the end, we have a whole two pages on resources and credits. Thank you, Priya. Okay. Now, having seen or analyzed all these activities, which you can actually go back and look into later when you have more time. Now, let's look at the next steps. What are our next steps? So, Priya, can you look at this graphic and take them through it?
Sure, Meena, thank you. The graphic that you see on your screen covers all the goals, but the highlight for us there is that last bit of the graphic where Mother Earth is pulling all these kids who are trying to run away from her, and it's depicted very beautifully, saying that we're all in this together. It's really the highlight for me from this entire graphic. And all these goals are not in isolation, but they're all interlinked.
Yeah, and it's funny how Mother Earth is pulling those children back.
Absolutely, yeah. So these are steps up on your screen. Are these steps what you can do? We looked at what should we do in the earlier slide, and here we are looking at what could we do. So any ideas in the chat? What steps can we collectively take before we take you through some of the steps we've thought through? Meena, can we have any do we have any ideas in the chat? Let me have a look.
Yes, I think let's ask our audience first before we express our thoughts. What
Yes.
can we
So
do in the
Anil Kumar is
classroom?
saying very true. Anil Kumar is saying that all these SDGs are interlinked. Very true.
Correct.
Very true. Sankit Kasa is saying educate everyone around us about this first. Very, very
Fantastic.
true. That's where it
Fantastic.
starts,
Yeah.
creating that awareness.
Prohibit using
Prohibiting
single-use
use of
plastic.
single-use plastic. Very true.
Yes. Yes. Applause, applause.
Industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Very true, Anil Kumar. Environmental awareness. Very true. Affordable and clean energy. Yes.
Correct.
Very good
Yes.
answers coming in, Meena.
Yes. Excellent. Excellent. I can see something less vehicles, petrol and diesel. Again, fantastic. How to reduce
Hmm.
fossil fuel dependence. We just talked about that. Thank you so much.
Use of public transport. I think they've read our slides. Don't you think so,
Yeah,
Meena?
I think we should just cancel our slides because they've given us all the answers.
Absolutely. They're talking about having technical skills and experience.
Yeah, right. Okay, shall we go to the slide then? Shall I move on?
Yes, yes, yes. Thank
Okay,
you for your responses, everyone.
thank you. So actionable measures for teachers. Now let's look at what you as teachers can do. The first one, Priya.
Yeah, I think as teachers, we can definitely start right in the classroom. And I'm sure most of us do this. We support gender equality by allowing both, all genders to speak up equally and involving them in the decision-making process. So as teachers, I think increasingly we should also reflect on this and involve all genders equally within the classroom.
Yes. And the second one is ask essential questions which stimulate critical thinking and problem solving. We have already seen a lot of activities which stimulate critical thinking and problem solving. Problem solving is extremely important for our future generations to solve all these huge issues which are coming up now and becoming more and more frightening. The climate change issue is becoming more and more frightening. But at a small level, it can be done. I have an example of this boy called Rohit from Bangalore. He designed a flush which would reduce water wastage by 50%. So from 6 liters, he reduced it to 3 liters. And also it helped in the sanitation of the community. So he won a Google Science Prize for this. This is just one example out of thousands of examples. So at your level, within the school, within the learners, it is possible by asking deep thinking questions. Yeah.
Very true, Meena. I think another way, as another measure as a teacher, is encouraging the use of multilingual approaches. Like we discussed earlier, many, all these deeper problems can be dealt with by using the native language. So I think multilingual approach can help with better understanding of the goals and implementation of it.
Yeah. Empathy and rapport are the key words here. And I would also
Absolutely.
like to add that social emotional learning should necessarily become a part of our curriculum or part of our daily routine, because that's a very important aspect which we sometimes ignore when it comes to our students. Now, encourage learners to develop intercultural friendships to raise awareness. Extremely important. We see a lot of hate nowadays being spread on social media, and a lot of narrow-minded thinking also. Sometimes we can see it happening. So we need to have them develop intercultural, interracial, maybe have international friendships. Now it's all possible nowadays on the net to raise awareness and also to increase tolerance and sympathy within the classroom. As we saw in the impact of the SDGs earlier, justice and peace are only concepts unless they are put into practice. So you as teachers, you must be having mixed ability groups, mixed languages, mixed communities in your classrooms. So tolerance and empathy and intercultural awareness can grow within your class. That is the beginning. That's the first step.
Yeah, and I think sharing our skills and our knowledge with professional and other communities of practice. As teachers, we can definitely do this. Within this group itself, there are so many of us, and sharing our understanding of the issue, understanding of the topic, and creating more awareness by even volunteering for example, with your time and your knowledge.
Yes, it's very important to volunteer. That's a good point. Thank you, Priya. So now let's look at actionable measures for learners. What can your learners do? So let's go step by step. There's a lot they can do, but we have only selected some because obviously we can't include everything. So the first one, Priya.
The first one is buy local, eat local, and encourage fair trade products. I think this is crucial with all these huge chains of restaurants mushrooming up around us. Meena, I'm very curious to know, what do you usually eat when you go out?
That's a very tricky question, Priya. I don't think I'm
Got you?
following this eat local. I have a favorite restaurant where I go for a Chinese meal once in a way, but I don't know if I'm actually encouraging local products. It's not a good habit, no. Okay. Compost food scraps, fix leaks at home, use public transport. There are three different elements here. So let's start with public transport. I think that's something all of us need to follow to save on fuel wastage. Go paperless. That again is something which is now, I think, quite current among all of us, especially after COVID. We all go paperless, we do digital transactions, and we try to save on printouts and paper as much as possible. Composting food scraps. I think civic authorities are trying their best to encourage waste, to impose actually waste segregation and composting food scraps responsibly. And waste disposal is being done responsibly. To a large extent, I think many states all over our country are following it and enforcing it. Fixing leaks at home. It's a very simple fact that all of us have a leaky tap. And very often you don't have the time or you just don't make the time to fix that leak. Now just think, somebody has done this computation. For 10 drops a minute, 90 liters are wasted in 1 month. So it's a very staggering figure, 19 liters per month. So it's very important to follow these simple steps.
Yes, Meena, that reminds me, I have a leaky tap at home. I need to fix that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I think we can, next point talks about using energy efficient lights and gadgets within our surroundings and at home. So, and also recycling electronic gadgets, which actually gets me to reflect, how many times do we change our mobile phones, Meena? All of us, especially, I mean, sometimes even without any necessity to do so. So really points to think about.
Yes, I can see a comment in the chat box saying also go ball pen less. That's a very radical statement because it's very true that everyone is using ball pens and not fountain pens anymore. Thank you. And the next one is conduct litter drives in beaches and parks. Avoid using plastic. I think our audience has already come up with avoiding using plastic. I think still many of us are guilty. We do use single-use plastic, and then we use packages which have foil and paper and plastic in them, like, for chips and biscuits. All of us keep munching. So there is a lot of buildup of litter there. Litter drives are being conducted by learners quite a lot in many urban and rural areas. But recently I read that in Juhu Beach in Mumbai, on one day, the volunteers collected up to 4,000 kg of trash on just one single day. So you can imagine how much we were littering our beaches. And the last one, Priya?
Yes, Meena, talking about, it talks about avoid wasting food, only buy products that you need. So obviously the food wasting point, our weddings, our festivities, there is so much excess food and there is so much food wastage. I also know of many NGOs now who come in to collect this excess food if you contact them in advance and let them know that you have an event, so you might need support from them. They then go and distribute this within communities that really need the food. And the last bit about only buying products that we need, I think I'm very guilty of doing this, all this online shopping that I keep doing. and just buying in, like splurging on it and buying things which I actually don't need.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely. I think all of us are guilty of it, not just you, Priya. Okay, thank you very much. A lot of responses have been coming in the chat box. Thank you for all your ideas. Now, Priya will be talking about the future of English.
Yes, so we've been talking about multilingual approaches throughout the session, encouraging and promoting use of multilingual approaches. On these lines, I'd just like to highlight a very landmark publication by the British Council, The Future of English, which is a major research program coordinated by the British Council. It provides a voice for stakeholders throughout the world, and it is shaping the agenda for further discussion on this topic, for the research and planning into the use of English, as well as approaches to English language teaching and learning throughout the world. Uh, you can access it by clicking on the link once this presentation is made available to you, or by scanning the QR code which is on the slide. We have also linked this in the resources section.
Yes, there is
Over
a
to you,
link.
Meena.
Yeah, thank you, Priya. So finally, let's have some reflective thoughts, food for thought. These are questions which you can think about, take away with you, think about them, and maybe act on them. In the context of the SDGs we have looked at so far, which ones are you most likely to adapt to your classroom and why? The second one is, how effectively can you help learners practice these principles in their school, home, and community? Just two simple questions for you to think about. And here we have...
Maybe we can have, Meena,
Sorry?
if we have the time, maybe we can have them have a couple of responses in the chat, maybe.
Yes, please
What
go
do you
ahead.
think?
Yeah, I think they could. In the meantime, I'll just run them through this credits. There are just 2 pages of credits and sources, and there are some resources if you're interested. If you're interested in any further research or further interest in looking, there are YouTube videos and there is reading as well. Yes, people are saying goal 4, gender equality. Education is important to apply to all goals. Yes, Jubair Khan, very true, very profound statement. So most people have gone with goal 4, I think. Yes, quality education. And everything
And
else is
I think
linked to it.
Sankit also, yeah, Sankit also talks about how gender equality is the need of the hour and needs to be understood and taught in the country.
Yes. And I think it's important also to link all these goals to the others. For example, we looked at all those lesson plans and those lesson clips where it's not just one goal, isn't it, Priya? It's always something which is linked to other goals as well.
Very true. They're all interlinked, and you can't. I think it's important for the current generation and the future generation to be
Yes.
made aware of this and to act on it.
Yes, yes, yes. Somebody has talked about transport fuel being a danger for society, and we have to plant trees. Implement reading and libraries at all levels. Excellent. He's a librarian, Mr. Ramesh. Thank you, Ramesh. Okay, I think this brings us to the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for being a great audience, very participative. And I'd like to leave you with a quotation by Albert Einstein. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. Again, something for all of us to think about. Thanks to everyone, and very happy to have had all of you with us today. Priya?
Thank you, everyone. I completely second that. Thank you for being such a participative audience. Thank you for engaging with the session and making it very lively and interactive.
Thank you to
Over to
Priya
you.
and Meena for this session, and to the NDLI and to everyone for such active participation. A lot of very good ideas in terms of pollution and fossil fuels and education and gender equality. Does anyone have any questions for our speakers today? I know you responded during the chat, but please type your questions in the chat box so we can take them up. it's great to see people from all across the country, so many librarians, so many people. There was somebody doing their PhD in SDG. So I'm sure they have studied a lot, almost as much as Meena and Priya, who've been working hard researching this. Did you see the number of slides we had in terms of the references and other resources that we could look at? We will also be uploading this on YouTube on both the NDLI page and the British Council page. Please let us know what else you would like to do in terms of these webinars and any questions you have about today's session. Courses for teachers to teach practical courses. Thank you. I'm already a part of SDG member at my university. Saloni is saying, somebody saying, why does government not take action against single-use plastic? Yes, that's a very big issue. I think that we're all facing with single-use plastic. I think it has to be stopped, I think, at the level in the production. The people who, there's a word for it, you know what it is, Meena, the people who actually produce it. Because it's everywhere. It's in shampoo, we get sachets, we get chips, we get biscuits. And I mean, it's a 20 rupee shampoo sachet. And I think that plastic is going to live for I don't know how many years. That is the tragedy. Thank you. Somebody said eco brick collection started in our school. How will be permanent member of SDG? Somebody's here from IIT Roorkee. Can we start any society or chapter at your college level? That's a very good idea. Any suggestions, Meena and Priya, on how to maybe have a club at the college level and what we should do?
Yes, I can think of already. We've done a project actually, Michelle, with Chennai Corporation, where we've had these clubs, teacher clubs and leadership clubs with the learners. And they are practicing many of these things. They are going on drives, they are doing advocacy and trying to educate their neighborhoods. So it's possible at school level and it's possible at college level, depending on the level of their whatever level of education they are at.
I think we have a lot of people from higher education here, and they have been saying, somebody has mentioned that we can do, Nandini, we can do role plays on SDG to create awareness every month, a class. That's a very good idea. Every month you can work on a different SDG and you can have a drive or a club meeting. There's so many issues in every city we face, whether it's the deforestation, whether it's the pollution, whether it's cutting trees, widening roads. I mean, we've been through so many examples that we have shared. I'm sure your students will have a lot of ideas themselves, because students are very active. It's facing them. They can feel the effects of, climate change and the problems that we are facing, and they are quite active themselves.
Yes, I think student populations are also being affected. They are being impacted by global climate change, isn't it? Just think of all the people who have become homeless now within Delhi because of the Yamuna coming up. Think of all
the whole
people.
of Himachal has been washed out.
Yes.
Uttarakhand has been washed out. I mean, it's we are feeling it here every day, I think. And somebody suggested here that we should plant trees, and that's what we try to do. Even if you live in an apartment, you can have a few plants or something to help with the whole deforestation.
Dr. Sunil Kapadia has a good suggestion here. Next time we'll have some experience of few institutions who are already applying SDGs in some way, and then we can share it. I think that's a very good suggestion. We can make it more interactive, and you can have people actually presenting what they have done. If it's possible, you can do that.
Yes. Tirthakar Sinha has a great idea. We need to use plastic to make the road. It's true, because the roads are, between the heavy rain and the amount of plastic, the roads have potholes. So, I mean, the amount of traffic and the amount of rain, the roads are breaking down. So I think in some places they have been using plastic to make roads.
Neetu says, I think there is a need for reusing to reduce the impact of polythene. Yeah, basically recycling or reusing plastic instead of just disposing of single-use plastic.
True. There's a whole Abid Das mentions we have a big community of rag pickers and things who live off this plastic business. But Zubair is saying it's already used in manufacturing rural roads. Yes, we would like to have these webinars more frequently. We will be working. We are very happy that we are working in partnership with NDLI. This is the first of hopefully many. I hope it has been a useful session.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me apologize for the delay. I was supposed to join the webinar at 5, but due to some unforeseeable reason, which came up suddenly today, I couldn't come at 5. Anyway, I am fortunate that I have been able to come now and join, though I missed most of the webinar. So, first of all, let me thank the British Council and NDLI for jointly co-hosting this webinar, where a very illuminating lecture by our educator Meena was delivered, and I think which will be very useful for all the participants. So I thanks and congratulate both British Council and my colleagues in NDLI for organizing this webinar. The NDL, or National Digital Library of India, is a government project through NMEICT, National Mission for Education through Information and Communication Technology. This project was initiated in 2015 with an idea to create a digital library which would be available to every citizen in this country. So the NDL currently hosts about 100 millions of contents covering almost all the fields, and the contents varies from primary level to research level. Also, contents are available for lifelong learners or learners who are not associated with any organization. This NDLI contents are available over 400 languages, which includes 39 Indian languages. And we have user interfaces on 11 languages. We have developed on our own, that is in-house developed, some verticals or some portals, as you can say. They are the career verticals, which includes training and preparation for various career level examination. That includes Railway Recruitment Board, Public Service Commission, UPSC, Banking Service, and so on. We have also developed a separate portal for preparation for joint entrance and NEET, JEE and NEET. So these will be very useful to all people who are aspiring to appear for those tests. NDL has also developed a portal known as Deepak, which describes the various physical challenge conditions like autism, blindness, deafness, and so on. The content, as you mentioned already, are available for school levels, which covers almost all the school boards in this country, the national as well as the state boards. And we have the textbooks available for the national NCERT and CBSE. Though textbook for all boards are not in general available, only those which are copyrighted free, they are available with us. Similarly, for higher education, we have huge number of content. As I mentioned that we have near about 100 million content as of now. And we have also developed an interlibrary loan facility to cater to all users with subscribed contents. The contents which are not available in NDLI, we have some facilities to borrow it from other libraries or who subscribe for that content, that article, and then pass it to the user who needs it. But remember that this will not be available to all users in the country. This will be available only those who ask for it. So that is interlibrary loan facilities. Recently, we have developed a dedicated library for Telangana governor of Telangana, and there are requests for various other states also, including Tamil Nadu, J&K, who have asked to develop digital library from their governor's official portal. Another function that NDLI usually do, that NDLI helps all the user institutions to handhold with NEP 2020. NDLI has the mechanism which helps the other institution to handhold NEP 2020. NDLI through NDLI Club tries to reach to various schools, colleges, and organizes events, webinar as such, that this is one such webinar where our valued partner, British Council of India, collaborated or joined with us to present this webinar. So it's my request to all the participants here to use NDLI and also to propagate NDLI to all parts of the corner. The repository that we have is huge, is 100 million plus and counting. And so we hope that every citizen of this country will try to use this huge repository for their requirement. And this is my humble request to all the participants here who joined today's webinar to disseminate and propagate NDLI. Thank you very much.